would be your biggest piece of advice? I mean, somebody's out there and a loved one, whether it's their wife, or their mom, whatever it is, gets diagnosed, as the caregiver, the companion that goes along. What would your best piece of advice be to them?
Probably that patience.
Oh, patience.
Because
I was going to say the same thing.
Because, and I think I said it before, nobody really knows what that person's going through. Even, no matter what we've been through or think we've been through, it's a very individual feeling, and I think that you as the caregiver need to just be objective and have a lot of patience with that person until they can either, get through it or sometimes it's hard for the patient to verbalize
it.
So
yes.
sometimes they're not able to tell you why they feel the way they feel because there's so much emotion going on. So you as the caregiver are like, talk to me, tell me. Well, I can't tell you because I don't know how I feel yet. So I think patience is a really big thing as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was really important to me when I would go in for infusions or any of the things I had to go through. It was enough that I just had to go through that.
Right.
I really needed the person there to be the real listener and to write down everything that you guys were telling me.
Yep.
Because I just couldn't, that was like...
You can't absorb it all.
I couldn't absorb that and multitask and somehow log it and have it afterwards. And I'm so thankful that my older daughters and my husband, they were at every single one of my treatments, and consequently, they had all that information and we logged it all in, and I
And if you
understand.
had a problem, somebody could look back at their notes and say, "Oh, this is what they said was going to happen." Yeah. Yeah.
And that's wonderful to have that kind of support.
Especially early on, because early on,
you don't
you're
hear.
in shock.
Yeah,
and
you're
you're not.
nothing.
You're hearing, but you're not listening, and you're not computing. You're not. It's just not sinking in. So that's definitely very important. There are people that come in, unfortunately, that don't have anybody with them. So again, that's where I think we have to come in for those patients and say, please make sure you call us if you think of any questions when you get home or if you forget something, because they don't necessarily have that support person that's so crucial, and it is, like you say, it's really important to have somebody with you, if you can, to try and take those notes and write things down.
I also remember very clearly one of your treatments, and I know that Joan was getting a lot of information from people
on the internet.
And I remember very clearly one day you saying to me that you're realizing how so many people could be going through the same thing, but in so many different ways, and how many people out there really don't have either support from family and friends or financial ability or insurances. And here you were listening to so many stories, and I just remember it very clearly that you had said, I don't realize.
Sometimes it just got to me, and I just
and
so sad.
And you don't think about it because you're just going through your life and your things. And now I'm listening and realizing that, well, here's 10 other people, and this one doesn't have her mother with her, and this one doesn't have a spouse, and this one doesn't have insurance, and but in the end, everybody's going through the same thing. It's just how different.
But some people go through it much rougher. I consider myself very lucky to have had the amazing medical care that I had and the incredible support system that I had. But I went on Access Hollywood one day, and they had people, go online, go on Twitter or Facebook and give questions. And and they used some of them on the air, and one of the ones was, gee, what would you point to as being the most important thing in getting through your cancer treatment? Well, it seemed to me that it was my support system.
Right.
And I just will never forget all of the comments that came in after that saying, I don't want to make you feel bad because I'm very happy that you have that great support system, but I just want to remind you that there are many, many of us out here who have no support, who are single moms just trying to, keep a roof over our kids' head and meals on the table, and we don't have anybody. We're alone. So when we hear you say that, it makes us feel sad. Oh my God, that was like getting...
But that doesn't mean that you should feel sad for what you had either. And I think that's the fine line again.
Yeah.
You know, you should be grateful for what you had, and yet I think that you have a big enough heart and have enough that you turn around and you do feel sad for those people.
Well, they were certainly a big source of inspiration.
Yes.
To get out there on the front lines and be an advocate and try to change laws and try to make sure that I could educate women as much as I could to let them realize all the resources that are available, because there are tremendous amount of resources, but I really felt a disconnect. I felt people going through their experience feeling very much alone and not really understanding how to access those resources. So they very much kind of inspired me.
And I think you're right. I think that there are a lot of resources out there that are not accessed. I think that, I know for me, sometimes I don't even know they're there. Sometimes I don't even know how to get them for a patient. So I think that it's important to know all of that, because you know, we have a nurse that works with us who has a lot of I don't want to say connections, but she knows a lot of those resources, and sometimes we'll call upon her and just say, hey, you know what, can you come over here and tell me if you have any resources available for this? Because sometimes we don't even know what's out there. Sometimes we forget that there's so much out there. And
you're a little busy making sure that people stay alive. And we appreciate that you're helping us stay alive.
But I think it's great, because I think you're right. Sometimes people don't know they're there or don't know how to get to them. And I think the resources are there, especially with a breast cancer situation. There's so much out there now. And I think that, you know, getting people to those resources is a good thing.